Hello and welcome to Monster Girl Hunter. This next series of videos is going to involve demi-humans from the Monster Encyclopedia Volume 1 from Kinku Cross. There are a lot of demi-humans. And we'll begin with the goblin. From Wikipedia, a goblin is a monstrous creature that appears in folklore multiple European cultures, first attested in the stories of the Middle Ages. They are ascribed various and conflicting abilities, temperaments, and appearances. They are almost always small, grotesque, and mischievous, or outright malicious and greedy, especially for gold and jewelry. They often have magical abilities similar to a fairy or demon. Goblinoids are a category of humanoid legendary creatures related to goblins. The term originates in Dungeons & Dragons, in which goblins and related creatures are a staple of random encounters. Goblinoids are typically barbaric foes of the various humans and demi-human races, even though goblinoids in modern fantasy are derived from J.R.R. Tolkien's orcs in the Middle Earth. Orc or goblin were the names for the same race of creature. In the Harry Potter book series, goblins are depicted as strange but civilized humanoids who often serve as bankers or craftsmen. In Shin Megami Tensei, a goblin is an imaginary, evil, chubby, and mischievous creature described as a grotesque, disfigured, or gnome-like phantom that may range in height from that of a dwarf to that of a human. They are attributed with various abilities, temperaments, and appearances depending on the story and country of origin. In most cases, goblins have been classified as constantly annoying little creatures. From Kinku Cross's book, the goblin is a small demi-human that builds villages and caves in other regions. The goblin looks diminutive, but this is in fact its adult form. Though they are small in stature, goblins have the brute strength to lift gigantic weapons as if they were as light as a breath of air. They can be cunning, but they are fundamentally simple creatures with inconsistent sensibilities. They use all their craftiness for mischief. It is common for goblins to form bands, either entirely of goblins or centered around a hobgoblin leader, which show up on highways at human travelers, strip them of all their belongings, and, in the case of men, rape them. Or I mentioned the large amount of rape before. If a goblin is drawn to a man she finds on one of her raids, she may carry him off to her abode and make him her husband. Not all goblins are so vicious. Many interact with humans quite amiably, such as goblin merchants who bring valuable ores and crafts from their village to human settlements to sell. Still, one must remember that they are goblins. If a goblin encounters a man who suits her taste, he is likely to seduce him if given the chance. Aside from their mischief and tendency to rape men, though, goblins are very personable and talkable, meaning that there are many such goblin merchants. Dealing with them, a man is often given the option to pay with his body in place of cash. However, this is not recommended as it usually results in him being carried away forever. Basic thing in Kinku Cross's worlds, don't touch monsters at all. Avoid them at all costs because they can just seduce you. Next, we have the hobgoblin. From Wikipedia, a hobgoblin is a spirit of the hearth, typically appearing in folklore, once considered helpful, but since the spread of Christianity, has often been considered mischievous. Shakespeare identifies Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream as a hobgoblin. Hobgoblins seem to be small, hairy little men who, like their close relatives the brownies, are often found within human dwellings, doing odd jobs around the house while the family is asleep. Such chores are typically small tasks like dusting or ironing. Often the only compensation necessary in return for this is food. While brownies are more powerful creatures, hobgoblins are more fond of practical jokes. They also seem to be able to shapeshift, as seen in one of Puck's monologues in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Robin Goodfellow is perhaps the most mischievous and infamous of all his kind, but many are less antagonistic. Like other fae folk, hobgoblins are easily annoyed. They can be mischievous, frightening, and even dangerous. Attempts to give them clothing will often banish them forever. Though whether they are offended by such gifts or are simply too proud to work in new clothing differs from teller to color. Blue Brocious is a name of a shape-shifting hobgoblin who played harmless pranks in the home of a shoemaker and his family on the Blackdown Hills in Somerset. His usual form was that of an old man wearing baggy blue breeches, but he also took the form of a white horse, a black pig, and a wisp of blue smoke. The family took his presence in good stride, but some clergymen learned of his existence and banished him from the house. Robin Roundcap haunted Blattington Hill in Blattington, East Yorkshire, and was a hearth spirit of the true goblin type. He helped thrash the corn and perform other domestic chores, but when he was in the mood for mischief, he could fix the wheat and chaff away, kick over the milk pail, and extinguish the fire. He is said to have been confined in a well for a stipulated number of years through the prayers of 3 clergymen. Dobby. Dobby is another term for hobgoblin in Lancashire and Yorkshire, according to the folklorist Elizabeth Mary Wright, especially one that is a restless prankster. Much like a Bargat, a Dobby's pranks may become so troublesome that a family decides to move, only to find that the Dobby has followed them. However, one Yorkshire Dobby lived in a cave and was noted curing children of the whooping cough. Dobbies can be just as industrious as other hobgoblins and brownies, which led to the expression Master Dobbs has been helping you whenever a person has accomplished more work than was expected. Hobgoblins is a subcategory of goblins. Hobgoblins are a subspecies of goblins whose aspects have changed drastically since the word first came into play in Old English folklore. The name was first used as an abbreviation for Robin Goodfellow, a mischievous but non-threatening goblin that would later be identified as Puck. However, it soon became used to describe a friendly, amusing, or good-natured type of goblin. In later English, the hobgoblin's aspects were reversed and became identified with far more malevolent creatures such as the bugbear or bugaboo, leading to it being seen as a source of fear and displeasure. This more modern version of a hobgoblin's nature is further strengthened by the fantasy works such as J.R.R. Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings. From Kinkou Cross, the hobgoblin is a mutation of the goblin with extreme swelling in one area of the body. They have really big boobs. Specifically, if it is distinguished by the large bosom, a trait not found in goblin. Like goblins, hobgoblins are simple in personality, though they also tend to be dreamy, with a demeanor decidedly calmer than the goblin. Well, hobgoblins are the rare offspring of goblins who delight in their birth and venerate them. When goblins form bands to attack men, they will always defer to a hobgoblin as their leader, and when they succeed in capturing a man, they secede the right first copulation to her out of respect. However, perhaps because their engorged bosom draws so deeply from any nourishment they consume, they are simpler and less clever than common goblins, though big boobs equal dumb. The size of their ample breasts may also be the cause of their clumsiness. When such bands chase a man, it is common to see the hobgoblin left behind, tripping and falling over. Despite their tendency humble, their brute strength is even more fantastic than goblins. They can casually swing around huge weapons, and when they do succeed in catching a human man, they use their strength to push him hard against the ground and wring him of his essence. It is highly unlikely a human would have the physical strength to free himself from a hobgoblin's embrace. In the process of copulation, the hobgoblin's large bosom weighs on the man, pressing and shifting against his body to give them both pleasure, as her breasts are incredibly sensitive. Even his breathing upon her skin is enough to make her arch in bliss. Thus, when a man touches her breast, her body is assailed by an ecstasy, like a humming electric current. If he seizes and kneads her breasts, she will be so overcome by the sensation that she will experience multiple climaxes from that alone. She will lose all awareness and surrender everything to the man. At this time, the man withdraws his hands. She will panic at the abrupt absence of pleasure, much as if addicted, and will desperately rub her chest against the man, tears in her eyes as she begs him to continue. Thus, even in coitus, the hobgoblin can be easily manipulated by a man. This is no reason to be complacent, as the other goblins will surely have been watching with arousal and will quite ready to attack in her stead. By this point, the reader may have observed that the hobgoblin is in fact inferior to the common goblin in just about every regard except strength. Why then, one might ask, do goblins so revere hobgoblins? They're rare. The hobgoblins themselves provide a rather incredible explanation for this. 1. Hobgoblins have large breasts. 2. Large breasts are amazing. 3. Therefore, hobgoblins are amazing. This fearsome logic must be said to be true in the nature of these simple creatures. But when one thinks about it more carefully, it is true that, given the important copulation with human men plays among monsters such as goblins, large breast may be quite an effective tool in mating. Perhaps this advantage is sufficient to compensate for all the hobgoblins' shortcomings. If there's one issue, there's not people coming to you to have sex. You are going out there and raping them. Your breasts don't matter. All that matters is your strength and your ability to chase these guys down. That'll be the end of the first video in this series. There are a great many other ones left. Hit like and subscribe. Be sure to share this amongst your friends and other hunters of monster girls. And keep your eye out for the next video.